Have you ever found yourself saying, I have to pick up after everyone or else my house is a mess? Well-meaning friends and family hear that and ask, why don't you just get your family to help you? As if you haven't tried that like a zillion times by now. If this is a boat that you have found yourself in before, then listen up. I tried this weird trick to conquer my family's messes, and it actually worked. I enjoy a picked up house on a daily basis, and I don't even have to do what I used to do. Some of those things that I have tried are keeping tabs on every single item, every single family member touches, watching them like a hawk, and the second that they're done using it, reminding them to put it away. Now, this would be very, very effective if it was my one and only job in life. And, well, let's just say it is not. Mama has better things to do with her time. I have also tried just not caring about the mess. This one is a very mystical unicorn in my life. No idea how other people do it. Whatever their secret is, this one just ain't for me. I have definitely gotten better about loosening my expectations and standards of, the level of cleanliness. But I have just found that not caring about messes only lasts so long before I start hitting a breaking point. And by long, I usually mean like a few days. The last common thing that I have tried is just tackling the mess all by myself. Because, as all of us moms know, many things are just easier when we are the one handling it all on our own. Problem with this one was burnout. Turns out I could only do that for so long, for so many years, until I just ran out of steam. Resentment was building, and I really do have a problem with raising kids that are irresponsible and disrespectful. I refuse to be the mother-in-law that the spouses curse one day. They will find another reason, I'm sure, but it's not going to be that my kids don't pick up after themselves. So, a few months ago, there I found myself yet again just feeling exhausted and overwhelmed by the constant house messes. And I actually thought there was something wrong with me at this point. Not only could I keep my house picked up, but I also wasn't okay with my house being a disaster zone. After all, my husband and my kids seemed to be totally fine with it. Well, we now know from research that mess and clutter has a bigger effect and impact on women than men. We get higher cortisol levels and heightened depression symptoms when we live in a cluttered home. Makes sense, right? So, what we need as women isn't necessarily the same as what men need. What this information means is that we need to take matters into our own hands a little bit when it comes to the standard that we need our home to be in for our mental health. In a perfect world, our husband and our children would pick up after themselves. It's a life skill that they need to learn. It's help that we deserve. And as we all know, that is easier said than done, considering that we can't force people to do what we want them to do. So in the meantime of that learning curve, you may want to try this. So, rewind a few months ago, it was summertime when there was sunshine and warmth and happiness in the world. And actually, I wasn't feeling too happy because the messes felt out of control. Again, school being out, routines being thrown off. I don't really know why, but people were just forgetting to put their things away. So you know what I did? I went to Ross and I bought a hamper for $16 and I put it at the top of the stairs. My kids' rooms are downstairs. And so at the beginning of each day, I would just do a really quick pickup. The reason why it was quick was because I wasn't putting anything away or back in its home, as we would say in my house. I was putting everything that was theirs into their drop zone and then shutting the lid for the day. It was out of my sight, it was out of my way, and I wasn't taking care of it for them. They weren't thinking that they had it so good and easy because the cleaning fairy just magically took care of all their messes. And you know what started to happen? They started looking for their things and finding them once they looked in that hamper. They didn't like that. It annoyed them. And then you know what happened? Before doing something in the morning, they started asking me, Mom, can I set this here or are you going to put it in the hamper once I leave? I would remind them what they already knew, which was that I pick up every morning so that I can enjoy my day at home. And then suddenly, they had the desire to run and go put it away. The system is still intact as we speak, and it is working wonderfully. School is back in, and they know that once they leave for school, I do a pickup so that the house is ready for me and anyone else that happens to come that day. And if you are curious, I laid the ground rule at the very beginning that if the hamper ever gets too full for me to put more stuff in it, it will just all get put in a garbage bag and be taken outside for a few weeks before getting thrown away. Surprisingly, it's never gotten too full. Now you may be thinking, that sounds great for my kids, but what about the husband? Well, when it comes to my husband, I kind of have the exact same system. His drop zone is his side of the bed, and I just nicely set his little pile there if he even has one. He's honestly really good about picking up after himself, but I put myself in his shoes, and maybe I'm just a really reasonable person, but if he were to do that, like if my stuff was in his way and he moved it and set it nicely somewhere in my room, somewhere in our room, I wouldn't be upset by that. Like it's not, I don't feel like it's rude. I don't feel like it's inconsiderate. I guess you'll learn. If he has a problem with that, maybe you come up with a different solution. But that is what's working for me. So now that you've heard my system, let me make some, I think, important distinctions. First of all, I only do this for shared spaces. I see my home as having two different areas. There are shared spaces, kind of common areas that we all use, like the living room, the dining room, the kitchen. And then there's personal spaces, areas that individuals use, like bedrooms primarily. So as much as you would probably love for your entire house to look presentable and fabulous every single day, I recommend, at least at the beginning certainly, letting go of ownership and control over any personal spaces that are not your own. So your kids' bedrooms, maybe your kids' bathroom if they have their own, your husband's office, anything like that. Our house is quite small, and so I deem my husband's space as his side of the bed. I just think it's important for everybody to have their own area that they get to decide how it's managed. They're not expected to keep it at a perfect mom level standard, perhaps. And so that's what I think works. Other thing, you might be thinking, that's great, but what about all the other stuff that's not their own personal belongings? What about the trash or the dirty dishes? These things I do try to stay on top of. Remember that whole watch them like a hawk thing? But if I'm not at the top of my game, or if I wasn't there when they were eating, let's say, then I have no problem interrupting anything they're doing to insist that they come and take care of it right away. It's in a shared space. And if they're not home, I am happy to take care of it for them in exchange for a pretty generous tip, because mama don't work for free. We have a family economy set up, so I just pay myself from their next week's payday. And that provides quite the incentive, you can imagine, to pick up after themselves. It's really not that we're out to get anyone. We are not trying to my way or the highway, anything like that. We are just respecting our own needs for cleanliness, for things to be picked up. We are the ones at home all day seeing the mess, dealing with the mess. If you've heard of the silent to-do list, that is a real thing. You're just taking care of yourself, and you are allowed to do that. So, beautiful mama, all the messes don't have to be on you. It is not your job to pick up after everyone. And it is not just a you problem that you don't want stuff strewn all over the house. Stop asking people, stop nagging people, and just find some drop zones. I am giving you permission to have boundaries with messes. If you leave your stuff in a shared space, then I will put it in a drop zone at the beginning or at the end of every day. You're not upset, you're not being rude, you are just taking care of yourself. This is healthy, this is reasonable, and it's what you need to protect your mental health and happiness. You are wonderful, and I cannot wait to see you soon.